don't know where my knife is. This is awkward. This ought to do. 1, 2. For those of you who really thought I was about to cut this box in half, I have to ask, do you understand how much $2,000 is? What's up guys, this is Titus back with the search for awesome, and today we are unboxing the GH5. I have to say that I am really excited to get my hands on this camera because I've been using this camera, which is the G7, for about 6 months, and I have found it wanting in a couple of areas which I'll explain later. Here it is. I gotta say, like, this is like a really heavy box. And let's just open it up and see what's inside, shall we? And here you go. Here are manuals, just what we wanted. The product registration, if you're interested in doing that. Inside that, you have a manual, which this manual looks to be in, I don't know what language this is in. Then they have a manual in English, which that's more my speed, but we don't really use manuals around here. I'll pull it out if I'm desperate. Let's see what else we got in the box. We're getting to the good stuff. Before that, let's look at the strap. I think wearing a band that has this on here is just basically saying, steal me! It's like part of a charging cable, a USB-C cable, which I only have one, and my phone uses USB-C, and it's very irresponsible, so I'm happy to get the second one. I think this is one of those things that hooks up to the side of the camera so cables don't get ripped out. I want to say that's what that is. You get a battery, and you get a battery charger, which this thing from earlier plugs into. And here you go. Let's just get everything out of the way. Let's just get all this crap out of here. Oh, you can definitely tell they put some quality into this thing. This thing just has like a ton of features. For controlling the camera, you have a dial here, you have a dial here, you have a dial here, and you have a joystick as well to go through the menus and that kind of things. I heard that's really nice. I'm excited to try that out. I mean, look at all these buttons just everywhere. It's got so many things. I definitely don't think this is a camera for a beginner because I think this would really overwhelm them. Compared to the G7, the viewfinder here is definitely quite a bit bigger. Also, like, whenever I move this thing around, I can feel something on the inside moving. That might be the image stabilizer built into the actual camera that stabilizes the lenses, which that's pretty cool. A couple other features that I want to mention about this camera: it can shoot 4K, which the G7 and the GH4 could as well, but this one can shoot 4K at 60 or 4K at 10-bit color. I have a crisp $1 bill. I want you just to kind of get an idea of the size. It's almost a full dollar width-wise. It's about like a little over $0.50 high. It's not quite $0.50, and then right here it's probably like $0.25. Definitely the size changes a little bit here and there. All right, I'm tired of talking about it. Let's actually like put a battery in this thing and try it out for a minute. So look at this crazy thing right here. What I'm gonna do is, this way it's totally even. I'm just gonna hold these cameras together and let's do some tests. So first I'm gonna start like really just nice and easy. All I am doing is walking sideways. Both lenses are 35mm zoomed in. And that's kind of the smoothness that you can expect. One of the big reasons why I got the GH5 and I'm not really loving the G7 is, really the biggest reason is autofocus. The G7 leaves something to be desired when it comes to autofocus. But I've heard that the G5 is like super improved, and I'm really hoping that's the case. Also, I'm kind of hearing murmurs that maybe it's not as great as people are thinking, but we're gonna find out right now.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
Have you ever had something that you like really liked, but then like everyone else just sort of hated on it? Like, you get a new car, you show it to a friend, and they look at it and they're like, it's nice, but it's kind of ugly. And you get mad at them and you're like, you're ugly. So I've been using this camera for about a week or so, and I was telling my wife how much I was enjoying it and how much I was liking some of the shots I was getting. And she looked at it and she was like, it's kind of big. And I looked at her and I was like, you're kind of big. Don't do that. So what's going on with the autofocus? If you've been looking on YouTube and on the internet, you may have noticed that there's a group of people that say the autofocus is not great, and there's a group of people that say, no, it's totally fine, and they're kind of been at a war with one another. In my opinion, and my experience with the camera, both groups are kind of both right. But let me explain. I found that when you use the 60 frames per second 4K mode, the autofocus is actually pretty good. It's really fast, really responsive. But then when you use 24 frames per second, the story changes a little bit. Now listen, I've gone through the settings, I have changed the sensitivity and the speed and back and forth. Nothing really seems to help. 24 frames per second, 4K on this camera, to me is just not usable. So I just thought I would use 60 frames per second then. But there's actually a problem with 60 frames per second too, at least when it comes to low light. Here is a test video I did in my garage. There are windows to the right of me with light flooding in. I had a door open from my kitchen, the light was flooding in from the kitchen, and there is a noticeable amount of noise in this image. I would go as far as to say, if you are not in like direct sunlight, you're going to see at least a little bit of noise when it comes to the 60 frames per second mode. So that kind of brings me to the conclusion with the GH5. I have really enjoyed using this camera over the past week and a half. The footage is amazing, it just looks really nice and crisp. And by the way, the standard color profile I think looks really nice. I didn't touch it at all, I just thought it looked really good. They pack so many features in this thing, and to the point where it is just truly an incredible camera. But I really need good autofocus. If the autofocus is off for a long period of time during my recordings, a lot of times I'm not gonna notice until it's too late and I'm editing the video and now my video is ruined. At 60 frames per second, 4K, the autofocus is pretty good, but still I wouldn't say it's at the level of some of the competition out there, at least from what I've seen. And it really stinks because I really like this camera. Panasonic nearly made a perfect camera right here. But its one flaw for me is a deal breaker. And I really hate to say that. So you may be wondering which camera I'm going to get instead, because this autofocus thing with the G7 has been a deal breaker as well. I'm looking at the T7i. It has their dual pixel technology. Now I did hear that Panasonic is investigating the autofocus issues with the GH5, and they have committed to actually improving it. But when will they have that done? I don't know. And how much will they be able to improve it by? Will it be as good as an A6500? Who knows? Probably not. I don't know. Now they might fix it, but right now the GH5 is just a $2,000 gamble that I just can't make right now. If you're interested, when I get the T7i, I'm going to be doing an unboxing and I'll probably review shortly thereafter. I really go in depth in my reviews, so if you don't want to miss that, please hit the subscribe button. And if you're looking for some other videos to watch, you can check out this one. Me and my wife spent a day in Disney Springs and we just kind of did a really cool vlog about it. It was really fun to make that. You can see what my G7 can do as a vlogging camera. Or you can check out my review of the, what is it called? The FDR-X3000. It's like my favorite action cam. I tried the GoPro Hero 5 Black. Didn't really like that one that much. I really like the FDR-X3000.